Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the most important recording projects ever. Yeah, and this is another one that you all said had to be here, and it does. I mean, who am I to argue? It's the Sony Stravinsky edition, which I think was probably, along with the Harnoncourt Leonhardt Bach cantatas, which I also mentioned, this is the most popular mention, and the Dorati Haydn symphonies, yes, of course. This is a remarkable achievement. No two ways about it. The most important composer of the 20th century, hands down, conducting all of his own music, or supervising when he got too old, Robert Kraft or someone else conducting all of his own music. Now, this edition, there's like a deluxe beautiful edition that I have sitting over there somewhere. And then there's this handy, more portable 22 CD cheapy edition, which is really rather nice of them to have, quite frankly. I like it this way. I really do. It's very, very convenient. You know, how was it possible to get this done? Aside from the fact that Sony, or Columbia as it was in the days, had Goddard Lieberson, who was really interested in promoting this and thought it was actually a selling point that the label got behind the most important composer of the day of art music and got what they could market as definitive, oh boy, were they not definitive, performances of his major works. Now, Stravinsky, remember, they got going on this stuff before Stravinsky wrote some of this stuff, which is really kind of remarkable. Stravinsky had a few things going for him. He really did. He had the wildly popular early ballets. I mean, he was a name. He was already a name when Sony got their talons on him, so that was a good thing. He was not a composer who worked at length. I mean, the Rake's Progress is his longest work. It's an opera, of course, but basically there isn't anything he wrote, aside from that, that's longer than an hour. And most of what he wrote is vastly shorter than that. And when you think about it, I mean, the Firebird is like 50 minutes. Persephone is about 50 minutes. I think that's his longest orchestral work. Oedipus Rex, almost. And everything else is 30 minutes, 20 minutes. And as he got later and more aphoristic, things got smaller and shorter and tinier. So you could pack a lot into a small space. It was economical to record Stravinsky, at least as far as that went. It really was. And the other thing is that he wrote music that doesn't require much in the way of interpretation. Now, that may be a controversial statement, but I don't think it really should be, because, Stravinsky's own aesthetic was that, music represents nothing and says nothing and only needs to be played literally as written, which is certainly the way he conducted his music most of the time. And other people mostly do too. It's true to the extent that it's written to be conductor proof in some ways. You just get the rhythms, play what's on the page, and it's going to sound the way it's supposed to sound. He was very, very, very sharp that way. So I think that it actually, the irony of this entire box set is that you would think that having the composer at the helm would give us unique insights into the music's interpretive ambitus, whatever you call that thing. Well, it's ironic in that music has no interpretive ambitus. I mean, we get tempo, we get phrasing, we get general duration and balances from Stravinsky's own performances. But the funny thing about it is that whatever you believe the music means or what it expresses, he was not such a good conductor that better conductors couldn't come along and do better performances, which they largely have. There are very few performances in here that are the best. They're interesting because they come from the composer. I think the strongest performances here, for the most part, are the symphonies, Symphony in 3 movements, Symphony in C, and the Symphony of Psalms, which are all very, very good. The Rake's Progress is very good. I like Oedipus Rex in this set. It's quite fine. And there are a few other things that are rather well done. But by and large, even there, you can usually do better. The late works conducted by Robert Kraft are fine. As usual, people hem and haw and say, well, some of these performances were recorded under pressure of time, so there really were they weren't given all of the resources. Well, you're never given all the resources. I've said it once and I'll say it before. It's all about money. It's all about how much time you can spend and how much money you got. And you have to make do with what you have. That is called life. And it's life in the arts. And of course, artists seem to feel that they're entitled to endless quantities of money and time and indulgence from the universe because it owes them the recognition they so richly believe they deserve. Well, it doesn't. It just doesn't. You do the best you can with what you've got, and they did. So you've got 22 CDs of this wonderful edition, and it's a joy to listen to, even in the music which, he doesn't conduct so well, like The Rite of Spring. There were early performances. The orchestras weren't always so great. His conducting was a little unsteady. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There is an aura of, an aura, pardon me, of authenticity around these performances, which, others may do more excitingly or more precisely, but still, having the composer on hand to document his own stuff for future generations is a very, very important thing. And it's even more important because nobody pays much attention to what he did. I have seen in my collection crap loads of Stravinsky, boatloads of the stuff, and I have never seen a liner note or a comment by a conductor or an interpreter that says, I took as my model Stravinsky's own performance of this work. They never say that. They either try to do something different or they silently don't care. But this is important because most performances are slower, and they really should not be slower. This is very good for tempo. I really believe that. And, as far as the rest of it goes, well, you decide what you like best, the orchestra, the conductor, the sonics, whatever, and you're just as far ahead. You don't have to go by him. But I think this has worked out very well because he's a useful example, but not a mandatory example, which is the way it ought to be in the arts. You have to give everyone their freedom to do what they want to do. And for all of his puckish wit about music expressing nothing and you just do what's on the page and all that, we know nobody does it. He didn't do it. Nobody did it. It's not possible. You just do the best you can, and you add whatever of yourself responds to the music, and out comes a unique organism, which is unlike any other, even if the differences are minuscule. But this is without question one of the most important recording projects in the history of sound. One of you mentioned one that I certainly am not going to be talking about at length, which was DG's Henze recordings, which is rather an interesting difference, because the difference there is that DG did these things, I think, largely in connection with Schott. It was Henze's publisher, and they never promoted them. It was never the sort of a project of the record label to document this amazing artist. They did him because they felt they had to, because he was German. But this was different. This was a project, a real, genuine project. And as such, it deserves recognition as one of the greatest ever. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.